What to do, what to do. This is the Brothers on Books podcast where we find great books that will give you real value and actionable steps and have fun in the process. Please reach out to us at brothersonbooks@gmail.com for any book recommendation or if you would like to be a guest host for a particular book you have in mind. A great review or rating on whichever platform you're listening to would be greatly appreciated. And lastly, if you can think of any friend, family member, or coworker that might like this episode, please pass it along. And remember, if it's a dark and stormy night and you need a drink to warm the depths of your heart, we at the Brothers on Books go with Encha Matcha, the best matcha for the best brothers. And now our listeners will get 10% off when they use the link in the show notes. I'm Alex Elwell, and with me, as always, is my brother Jack. Jack, how you doing?
Right? Sipping on some cool matcha along the, end of a long day. And Arsenal are into the round of eight. So it is a good day.
Very cool. I just had my onboarding, I guess it's just my onboarding to be a teaching pro at Lifetime. So I will be now working 2 hours a week at Lifetime Fitness,
Cool.
teaching pickleball clinics.
So people can go see you for pickleball training.
Yep, that they can. I've been
Very
told I'm
cool.
a good teacher. I've also been told I'm a bad teacher, so we'll see how it goes.
Okay.
So, Jack, what book are we doing today?
Today we're reading Henry Kuttner's Fury.
Okay.
I picked this in the book draft. I'd never heard of Henry Kuttner. Um, but the synopsis sounded very interesting, and my theme this time was science fiction, and I figured why not? Let's do it.
I guess how did you find this book? That was actually what I was sort of curious because this is a very old book. I
It
mean,
is an old
old,
book, but it
yeah.
doesn't actually read like an old book.
Oh,
Which is
that's
what
true.
I was surprised about that. But I found it there's an like a secondhand bookshop here called Second and Charles. I don't know if it's a chain, but all these sci-fi books were in this section, and they were all very cheap, like $5. So I just picked a bunch of sci-fi books, and I think it's because they're so old, they get published by these like generic publishers. But yeah, I mean, I read through probably a couple dozen different books, and this was one that I thought that sounded interesting enough to read.
Okay. I mean, you want to give a brief synopsis of the book, and I guess like what drew you to it.
Sure. So, well, the synopsis here. Sam Reed was born an immortal, born to rule those with a normal lifespan, but his deranged father had him mutilated as a baby so that he wouldn't know of his heritage. And Sam grew up on the wrong side of the tracks and the law, thinking of the immortals as his enemies. Then he reached the age of 80, understood what had happened to him, and went looking for revenge and changed his decaying world forever. So, the first question is that I wanted to bring up. And so there's like two classes of people. There's like the normies, and then there's the class of people that live forever, basically. And um, they seem to take their time with things. There's not a whole lot of urgency in their lives, and they can acquire all this experience and skills kind of at their leisure. So I had a couple thoughts on that, but I guess how would you treat immortality? Like if someone were to tell you you're just going to live forever, how do you think your life would change?
I don't think they were living forever. It was just like close to 1,000 years, right? Which is fun,
I think that's right. And technically, it sounded like they could still be killed.
right?
Um, it was just that, yeah. But
Yeah,
for
so
all, yeah.
yeah, functionally, I guess to a normal human, you probably would appear immortal. Uh, I guess like at first, I was kind of, you say like, yeah, you would have the time to acquire all these skills. and in some regards, I think you would have the time to acquire a real lot of wealth, like just through, compounding interest. You would, unless you were just so terrible with money, you would almost by default be able to accumulate a massive amount of wealth. But I think they portray him as like obtaining a lot of skills. I don't necessarily know if that would be the case. Like when you look at humans, I feel like I am the most proactive or I am like the most proactive when I feel like I am on a time crunch. Like I then I feel like just achieve the most. I get the most done. Everything is just kind of, I guess, flowing. I feel like when I feel like I have a real lot of time, that's kind of when I feel like I waste a lot of time. And I don't know. I guess I'd be interested in how you would feel about this, but I feel like that could lead a lot of people to being very almost cautious, like a lot of these wait and see attitudes about everything, not really kind of like almost becoming stagnant. Uh, I don't know.
Where I would agree with you is, yeah, I think to accomplish certain things, like it's good to have a sense of urgency. It's good to have deadlines because then there's that kind of saying like the work expands like the time you're given basically, or whenever you set the deadline, you're probably gonna hit it. So from that point of view, yeah, I kind of thought they're depicting the people kind of in a way I wouldn't have thought of. But I guess from like in terms of understanding other people's behavior and getting experience at what drives other people, as long as you're around people, I think you're able to gather more like data on how people operate. So I think like it might not be like actually like achieving something like you personally, but in terms of gaining experience on how other people are motivated, I think it probably would be helpful. And that's how I took some of the characters that were immortals. It was like not necessarily that they had more like technical skills, but it was more they had like people skills and were able to determine what motivated certain people and how, and like understanding how the other people would think, and almost, yeah, like play with them in, like kind of, yeah, like kind of anticipating what they were going to do without them even knowing what they themselves would do. So that part I found interesting, and that a lot of this book was kind of playing chess with each other, and the immortals seemed very good at understanding people's reactions and how, um, just the everyday person would respond in different scenarios.
So like I don't I def okay, so like I feel like that is a almost in some regards, like I think you can nurture like being able to read people, I think is a skill that you can nurture and build. But like there are humans that have, finite lifespans that are very good at manipulating people or reading people or being able to predict what others will do. I mean, that's what all of Robert Greene's books are about, essentially. Like that's what the 48 Laws of Power is about. Is about like how to understand others and how to kind of play on those emotions. But for every one person he gives an example of, the vast majority of humans are unable to sort of read others. They're unable to grasp what others will do. So I don't necessarily know that I think just because someone lived a longer life, I mean, probably would be able to interact on some regards better, but maybe on others worse. There's that old there's that like old well, I don't know if it's an old saying, but there's the saying, there's the difference between a plumber with a plumber that's worked 20, or it's like a plumber that has 20 years experience versus a plumber that has 1 year of experience 20 times. Like I feel like you would probably see a lot of the latter. And like just like the normal population, you would see, a subsection that benefits from their experience and a lot that probably don't learn from it at all.
I guess the part that I thought in terms of like so the people we're discussing, like the main character is was born Sam Harker, but he was brought up as Sam Reed. Um, the people in the Harker family that were kind of in charge, and this is like a colony in the sea, like under the sea on Venus. Um, it just seemed like if you're in charge of people, like you can see how they respond and what will push people to the edge, kind of. Like if you're able, like we weren't able to see what it was like during, Nazi Germany or Weimar Republic, how people responded to, hyperinflation, to like regime kind of rallying people around um, discontent and then also kind of seeing what will push a people to rally together to try to like overthrow a ruler. I feel like those are like longer cycles
Sure.
that if you're not really there, I mean, I don't know, like, I don't really know how that would like look like in our lives. Um,
I guess what I'm saying is like I think like what you're describing is a skill set that some people are it's something like I think people are somewhat innately good at, and once they're innately good at, you probably nurture it a little bit. What I'm saying is like I think in this class of immortals, there would be a group of them, probably, I mean, in many regards, I think you're probably right, the ruling class that would be very good at what you're describing, which is sort of what happens in the book. But I guess what I'm saying is I don't necessarily think that just because you would be considered an immortal would make you better, would necessarily make you good at that.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, I guess it wouldn't like necessarily, but I feel like I mean it could be beneficial for any skill, nurturing any skill. The longer you have to practice, the better you will be. So I
Sure.
guess all
Of
things
course.
equal,
Yes. Yes.
yeah. So okay. So next topic, I would say so Sam in the book is trying to basically revolt against, I would say, the people living in the bottom of this, Venetian ocean, and he's trying to go to the like above the ocean to the land and colonize the land. Basically, starting a revolution to colonize this land. And the way he does it is he promises them that they will become immortal too, like how he's painting the picture that he became immortal due to radiation exposure. Um, and one of the things that I thought was a really good quote in the book about pioneers is that pioneers are pioneers because conditions at home are intolerable. So kind of like revolting by like leaving, like um like I guess what we think of as a pioneer. So the question around pioneering that I wanted to bring up, or we can just discuss it, but like the concept of pioneering and then like the forces trying to keep people in the status quo. So like I guess when you think of like pioneering in your own life, like where do you feel like you might be considered a pioneer?
I mean, like, I mean, truly a pioneer. I mean, in my circles that I run with, uh, I feel like I would definitely be considered a pioneer in, at least when I was in grad school, like the real estate stuff.
Mhm.
Like no one I was a contemporary with was doing that. Like when I was in grad school, you know, I had my primary house, which I was renting out rooms. Uh, Everyone told me, essentially everyone I was in grad school with told me I was an idiot to do it, because you know, you don't have enough time, it's a lot of money, you're on the hook, all the just normal nonsense arguments of like why you shouldn't do it. And then when I bought my second house, it was like a lot of the same. It's like this is really stupid. Like I don't want to deal with like a broken toilet, blah blah blah. So in that
Okay, but
regard,
okay, but when you get to like the crux of it, why
because
what were
you're
you
different. You're going against what they know.
but what are you viewing as what they know versus what you're breaking away from? Because I thought the same thing, but I'm curious, like how do you view it? Because
I don't understand. What do you mean? How do I view it?
so why are they viewing that as kind of foolish, I guess? Or why are you trying to break away from what led you to want to do it?
I can tell you exactly. I remember when I decided I was going to go to grad school, I remember looking at how much I was paying in rent, seeing that I could buy at the time a $200,000 house that would be less of a mortgage, essentially the same mortgage as my rent. I knew my girlfriend at the time was going to be moving away, so I figured I could buy a house with multiple rooms. Since we were splitting rent at the time, I could buy a house with two extra rooms. I could rent them both out, and I could essentially have my mortgage paid for. And it was like I distinctly remember thinking like it as a eureka moment. Like I can essentially, live in a nicer place than I am now and have it totally paid for. Uh, and I
Hmm.
just remember thinking like, why would I not do this? Like
But I
uh,
guess so. What I'm getting at is like you did it really because you're kind of acknowledging the monetary systems like effed basically. The that's really what you're doing, right? Like
I
it's
don't
because
think.
they've
I mean,
incentivized to
yeah,
take out debt.
well, true. I mean, I think you're probably gonna dovetail into Bitcoin, which I would also agree. I mean, well, you got me into Bitcoin, so I mean, I guess you were the true pioneer there, at least in our family. Uh, but I guess I wouldn't have tied that to the monetary system being bad. Yeah, I agree. They definitely incentivize. The incentive is clearly to buy houses in this country. Uh, I think most people just never took the time to think that their monthly payment for a mortgage could be less than their monthly payment for rent. Uh, is what I think a lot of it is. And then I think everyone is also scared of like buying. I think a lot of young kids, if you're not, or I mean, young adults, if you're not pushed, probably would find it scary, especially considering people around, I would say 20 to 30-year olds are like very transient. So it's like a hassle if you're buying a house, and then it's like almost viewed as like something that you do when you're married and you want a kid, I guess.
Okay. Um, yeah, because I would have. I mean, I was thinking along the same lines. And like so, when Sam's trying to break away, another point that he makes is like the conservatives always end up wanting to, keep with the status quo, and they want to inflict fear in others so they don't go to the other option. So, like to your point, like people are told like no, you don't know anything about investing, or like just put it into like this fund and let the experts do it for you. You couldn't possibly be smart enough to run your own money or like do a house hack or um
Run your own business. I
just
mean,
yeah,
yeah.
things are a lot of what's other popular ones. Things are so uncertain. Yeah, just give it to the expert and like just uh and this is how things have been done in the past. Like that's kind of the same the same verbiage. Um, but I think people are starting to kind of wake up and that like and I would say like the part that's becoming intolerable is like the the fiat system. And that is why you see people go into like these, the Bitcoin maxis and that's why real estate has been good historically. Um,
Do
because the conditions are intolerable. So that you have to do other stuff. You are a pioneer, I guess, for trying to do something outside the norm.
do you really think people are waking up though, or do you think you just? I mean, I mean, do you think you are in somewhat of a like a bubble?
I mean, yeah, I mean, I'm going through like actually a Bitcoin valuation, and I was trying to put a value on what I thought the market value of all store values are. And actually, I have my chart over here. I came out to like around 500 trillion, and Bitcoin is at 1.6 trillion. So that is 0.3% of all store values. And that is like mind boggling to me. Well, it's first, I mean, just think of all the things that have become store values like art and wine and collectibles. Um, and like gold is at like I have it listed at like 3.5%. I mean, but real estate is by far the biggest, and it's because there's a lot of incentives. Um,
But the
Yeah, I don't want to get like
incentive,
too off
yeah, the
tangent, but
incentive, the clear incentive in this country is to buy a house.
right.
Uh,
Yeah.
I think it's almost, well, clearly gold for the longest time, there was a clear disincentive to buy and hold gold, right? From 1933 or whatever to 1972, you weren't allowed to buy gold. It's a clear disincentive.
Well, I mean, and then
And even
yeah.
even still, I feel like if you talk to like financial experts, they won't probably most I don't think would recommend buying gold, mainly
Well, that's
because
because
they
I
don't
would
get
say
a
most commission.
right. Yeah,
Yeah, so they're trying to sell you these funds and like certain insurance policies,
sure.
uh, because yeah. I mean, in the status quo seems to be, you know, crisis comes, print a bunch of money, and then and even if it goes at first to the poor people have to pay their rents, and who gets the money that goes to rent is the landlords, and who gets the money they get to go buy groceries, it's the people that own the grocery store. And yeah, that's just what happens. um
And I feel like
so
I was listening to someone talk about I was listening to a hyper progressive guy talk about money printing yesterday, and like that what you just said, like totally, I feel like went over his head. Like the inflation tax, just like I feel like he totally missed, and I feel like he totally didn't get how inflation really benefits like the top 1%, and that's what really drives, wealth inequality. Like I think
mhm.
probably the most, right? You would say?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's like that. I mean, to me, that is the thing that's becoming intolerable. Um,
Yeah, well, yeah, I agree, and but most people just see it as the fact that like chicken or eggs now cost like $3 a carton or whatever, and not that, they don't view it as inflation. They just view it as like their groceries are getting more expensive, but it is,
mhm.
inflation.
Um, so okay, so Mark Twain's got this famous quote that the whole book kind of I feel like captures. But Mark Twain's quote is, "It ain't what you don't know that gets you into trouble. It's what you know for sure that just ain't so." And we've talked to Chris
Remember?
Noggle. I think he
Yeah.
likes saying that
You like
quote.
that quote? Yeah.
I like that quote. And I felt like a couple times in this book, people get into trouble because they take for granted certain things in their life that they just assume to be true or safe that are in fact not. Um, I don't know. Any comments on that? Anything that maybe you've gotten in trouble in the past from some sort of belief you had, or maybe something that you've changed your mind on?
Oh God, got in trouble from essentially a misheld belief. Uh, I mean, nothing's really coming to my head right now. I mean, I've had belief in people before, and people have let me down, or people have, not been honest with me. And I guess by nature, I'm like relatively trusting. Uh, I think I am like pretty trusting, like especially about a lot of things. Like I can't imagine why people wouldn't be truthful about some things, and then it just turns out that sometimes they are. Uh,
Mm. So that comes so like I guess the more you go through that, I mean that's kind of how I felt the Immortals were, because they just got a bigger sample size of interacting with people.
sure.
And then you can kind of like construct, like as you go through life, you like, you're thinking one thing, but then something pops up, or like a certain people act a certain way, and then you're like, oh, like people can like act that way too, or like they can, make you think one way but then do another thing for their to their advantage, or um
I mean, like I don't know, being surrounded. I mean, growing up, like, where we grew up, I feel like was in a good area, but like the surrounding area of where we grew up was like relatively poor. Uh, but
like, I mean, middle class, like.
mm, yeah, sure. Uh, but like at times, sometimes I feel like I'm so isolated around like high achieving individuals, like I forget what some people will do. And then like I don't know, every once in a while, I interact with someone and just the way they behave is just so shocking to me. I just like can't believe it. I mean, I remember it wasn't that long ago. I was at a gas station and someone cut this car off, and the person like to get to the pump, and the person like they got cut off, got out of their car, and I thought they were going to attack this person just for cutting them off at the gas station. Like they just went absolutely ballistic over something that just seems like so trivial. It's like what are you doing? How can you possibly be so upset over this? Um,
My wife would say that people in America are much more on edge, and these things are much more, uh, I guess, prevalent in the US. And
I actually
that's what a lot of the Europeans say is the argument for just, just putting the poor people, or putting people living on the edge in housing, or that's what they always say. Like, we don't want people freaking out over like a little thing. That's normally their argument. Um,
I actually recently had a somewhat uncomfortable altercation. I go to a Jimmy. I don't know if I told you the story, but I'll just tell it for the listeners. I occasionally go to Jimmy John's for lunch, and it's in this strip mall. And there was this car parked, and I parked in the parking space next to it, And I all I check is that I'm within the lines of my parking space. I'm within the lines. So I walk, I ate my lunch, I come back to my car, and there's this massive woman standing by my car. And I think to myself, oh no, this woman hit my car. And you know, sh I unlock my car and she just starts screaming at me. She's like, "How could you park like this? What are you doing? You've blocked me in. I can't get to my car." I go like, "What are you talking about?" She's like, why are you parked? You're parked so close to my car." And I go and I look, and I am within the lines on my side, and she is also within the lines on her side, but we're both very close to the line. And she was a very fat woman, and she was just thinking like she couldn't get into her car. I mean, I don't know. I feel like that's happened to everyone. But if that's happened to me, I just sort of wiggle into it and I get on with my life. And she sat there and she just kept, yelling at me. And finally, I just said, you know, I I started yelling back at her, and I just said, do you want me to move my car, or do you want to just sit here and yell at me? She's like, I want you to move your car. And then I just told her, all right, and like, shut up. And then I
Okay.
got in my car and left. But I mean, I just like I could not imagine myself uh essentially yelling at someone like that uh, over parking. Like, especially if they're technically, I was technically in the right. I'm technically within the lines.
Mhm.
I just could not possibly imagine acting like that.
Was her car there before your sale?
It was, yeah.
Okay. Are you going to try to be more central in the line going forward?
No, I mean, I got so angry at her. I was on the verge of telling her that if she went on a diet, this wouldn't be an issue.
That's
Uh,
that's what I was going to ask next.
yeah, because it wouldn't have been an issue for me or you. Is I guess
Hmm.
I'll leave it at. But
Hmm.
I don't think it even would have been an issue for her, but I mean, it's just the type of behavior is just like it's just something I wouldn't do.
Hmm. That
I
was
mean,
in Birmingham.
yeah, it was in Birmingham. I had in Nashville, my neighbors they occasionally parked in front of my driveway, so I couldn't really get out of my driveway, and I had to talk to them many times, and I never spoke to them like that. At the end, I told them if they did it again, I was going to have their car towed. But it was
Hmm.
always in a very polite and respectful manner. Never, screaming, expletives like a crazy person.
Hmm.
Because I
Yeah.
mean, shit, all she knows, I could be crazy and I could have a gun and like I could just, do whatever. But
Hmm.
so I guess to Elena's point, that is one reason why I try to always sort of treat people nicely because I don't know if they're crazy and they'll do crazy things.
Yeah. You never know what someone's going through. I mean, and I feel like having renters, sometimes you learn about how other people deal with stress. Because, like, I know you've had some issues with tenants breaking stuff, and I had a guy after a breakup, he lit a pan of oil on fire and then set it on the carpet in the hall. Tried to burn the
Solid
house
choice.
down.
We would have gotten
So,
that insurance money.
yeah. So, yeah, but Sam Reed in the book, he was so cerebral in some of his planning, but I don't want to give away too much, but his downfall ended up kind of being something that was so close to him that he kind of took for granted. And it was an assumption in his mind that was like safe, and it ended up not being safe. So that was his downfall. And I think that is a lesson we can all take.
I mean, it's like Caesar's last words, like "E tu, Brute." Like, you know, it's like seeing even like your closest friend betray you can like happen to anyone. Kind of
Hmm.
like makes me think about some of those old, I'm sure it still happens, but like those old Survivor episodes where people would be like tallying notes and like they're so sure they have all of the votes. And then they go to tribal council and it's like a 1-7 against them. It's like everyone was just like, I want to get rid of you. And they're just like
Hmm.
all lying to them.
Yep. And I think it's I mean, this book really made me think about like what motivate like everyone's kind of playing a different game. And you kind of have to find through your life like what types of things motivate people. Because like what you value really might be the least of someone else's concern. So you like if you wanna I don't want to say manipulate people, but if you wanna have leverage in some negotiation, you kind of need to know what type of game they're playing. Because what you might value might not be what they value. So uh, this book made me think about that a lot, and I really enjoyed how he wrote the book, and while I thought the first half was it may be a little slow to get into, I thought the second half really picked up and was quite entertaining. I almost wish they'd make this into a movie. I don't, because I thought it was pretty interesting.
You know, it's almost at that point where you could probably get the rights for it on cheap and start pitching it.
And maybe that's my next career.
There you go.
So okay, any last thoughts?
Um, no, I don't think so.
Okay. Well, with that said, please reach out to us at brothersonbooks@gmail.com for any book recommendations, or if you'd like to be a guest host for a particular book you have in mind. A great review or rating on whichever platform you're listening to this would be greatly appreciated. And lastly, if you can think of any friend, family member, or coworker that might like this episode, please pass it along. I am Jack Allwine. With me, as always, is my brother Alex Allwile. And Al, what book are we reading next?
We're reading Jeep Show by Robert B. O'Connor, and we will have Robert B. O'Connor on. This is a story about someone's experience at the Battle of the Bulge.
Should be pretty cool. Looking
Yep.
forward to it. Till next time.